The opinions expressed by guests on Town Hall, a Black Queer podcast, are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the podcast host, Bob the Drag Queen and Peppermint, the podcast production team, or the organization Black Queer Town Hall. Each participant is chosen for their unique perspective relevant to the theme of their featured episode. While we strive to provide a platform for diverse voices and narratives, individual opinions may vary, and listeners are encouraged to engage critically and respectfully with the content and the people presented. Welcome back to Town Hall, a Black Queer podcast, a podcast where we journey through a theme by sharing stories, music, poetry, and art of varying depth and hilarity. And today's episode is a two-part, part two of our venture into the world, the mysterious, the lovely, the beautiful, the dynamic, the controversial world of polyamory. It's a very different beast for a lot of people.
It's true. And in part one, we began unpacking the complexities of polyamory, discussing definitions, challenges, and the joys. And in this episode, we continue to dive headfirst into the heart of the matter, exploring intersections of race, gender, and sexuality within polyamorous dynamics.
Now, from addressing jealousy and communication to dismantling stereotypes, we'll continue our dialogue with authenticity and vulnerability. So whether you're a seasoned polyamorous or simply curious about non-monogamy, or if you are convinced monogamy is for you, but you just find it's all so interesting, join us for part two of this enlightening episode. Do you think you'd ever date someone who was dating someone else?
I don't know about, I mean, yeah, I have. I haven't really been, I don't have access.
Like consensual. That you had some non-consensual things that you didn't know about and then were revealed to you later. But have you have engaged with like consensual like polyamory before?
No, because I've never really been claimed as anyone's partner. So, I mean, can't, so I mean, let me back that up. In terms of dating, like being single and dating, I guess that means in general, you're obviously not monogamous. I mean, I don't know. I guess you can be dating exclusively. Like there's all these different levels, right? I have dated, I've had sexual relationships that were exclusive, one-on-one, to the best of my knowledge. And I also have had, I've been in a relationship with a partner who we were like dating exclusively, but then we were primarily dating. We were dating as primary partners, but then we decided to open it up so we never really became extremely exclusive, if that makes sense.
Got it. Yeah.
And so that's been my experience with relationships in general. But outside of that, when I'm dating, like, I think that the thing that it is a choice to be like non-monogamous or polyamorous or polyamory is a practice, I think. But like, it is and there's some intention behind some of these things and hopefully some conversation and consent. And I think that comes when you are both on the same page with regards to like what you can get out of a relationship, dating, and your goals. And I haven't always been on the same page. Usually the only thing that I can offer to the partners who are interested in me in their eyes is sex. And so they're not looking to me for like a romantic or emotional partner. They're not necessarily open to someone like me as a partner that they would want to see outside of a sexual situation. Whereas if they were I know that the cis women in their lives, this is somebody that I want to marry and get pregnant and have kids. And I'm not a contender for any of that in their eyes. Obviously, I can't get pregnant.
I would say because certainly we all know that trans women can have children. Trans people of all identities can have children. And we also know that cis people of all identities can not have children because some of them can't. You know what I mean? This is not to Peppermint, but the listener out there, your transness is not what
their
dictates
idea
whether or not you can't have children.
of what they're thinking of partner.
Yeah. I'm just telling it to the listeners who may not because I remember someone was like, why do someone recently said to me online, because I was talking about reproductive rights on TikTok on one of my TikTok debates, and he was like, why do you care? You can't even have kids. And I was like, do you think gay guys can't have kids? Are you under the impression that gay guys, that our bodies have just shut down the ability to participate in the creation of life? And even if we're not talking about the creation of life, the raising of children, we're certainly legally allowed to engage in that as well. But I do think that sometimes people think that the only people who that they like, I mean, as a reminder, Caitlyn Jenner has like how many
Boom.
kids? Like clearly, trans people can have kids.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I think
So, and also Miss Major had a kid a couple
I
years
think
ago.
that they can't that they are can't wrap their mind around or can't get their mind outside of the notion of like we think your body can't bear a child, and that's you as a femme person can't bear a child. So if you like a person having a kid doesn't necessarily mean that that person is pregnant. um and obviously queer gay men can give birth because there are gay men who are trans who can carry a child. Um, and so I think that the barrier, not to get too in the weeds with this, but I do think that the biggest barrier is not the fact that we are trans and we're born with a certain anatomy that people are like assuming that that's what we have, even though they probably have never met us in person, they've never seen us naked, so they don't really know what we have, let alone what our chromosomes are, which is what a lot of people use against trans people. But like, really, ultimately, they they can't get their mind outside of what they are thinking, and we were born with, assigned at birth, and the anatomy that we had at birth.
And not just born with what they think women are
Right.
born to do. Like they think that is the purpose of womanhood is to they have their mindset is the purpose of womanhood is to
And they see
make
that trans
babies.
women,
And if you're a woman that
they
can't
see
make
that
a baby,
trans women
then
don't
she's
fit
out
into
here.
that. But my point was, it's not so much the fact that I'm trans and was born whatever anatomy you think that I was born with. It is the fact that it's honestly, for many people, it's the medical intervention, the medical transition for many trans people at this day and age in 2024. As advanced as trans medicine is, there are still some decisions, some important decisions that people have to make. And, uh, sort of reproductive justice and healthcare is one of those things that that many trans people aren't necessarily immediately brought into the conversation and isn't included in their trans related healthcare. It could be. And if anybody, out there is listening, if you are trans and are considering a medical transition, then make sure you speak with your doctor about reproductive healthcare. Freezing, your DNA, your eggs, your sperm, whatever, so that down the line, and I know that's really expensive and that's a whole nother conversation, but that wasn't even presented as an option for many trans people prior to having certain surgical interventions that would make it much harder for them to do so later. And so that is what makes it difficult for many trans people to reproduce, not the fact that they were born with whatever they were born with.
Yeah, Gigi Gorgeous and her partner did a really detailed documentation of their attempts at getting pregnant over on their YouTube page if you're interested in that kind of content. And my other question to you, Pep, before we get into the episode is how do you feel like how do you feel jealousy affects you in your relationships? I mean, I know that for me, jealousy actually affects me more in my friendships than it does in my relationships. Like if my friends get a gig I want, but I'm also happy for them. It's like a weird combination of jealousy and happiness at the same time. It's kind of like doing something so early and then someone else came along after you and it was a little bit easier and you're jealous that they had it easier. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Um, or wanting a gig or a job so badly, but someone that you know and love bested you out for it, so you ended up losing
Mm-hmm.
on that job. But when it comes to with my partners, I tend to typically find a lot of happiness and joy in seeing someone that I love find
I think
happiness and
one of
joy.
the things that's really difficult, especially, I mean, when I'm straight, I know a lot of people that like is mind blowing to a lot of people. I'm begrudgingly attracted to, huh?
You can work on no one's perfect. You can work on that. No one's
But
perfect.
I'm trying to change my sexuality as
Straight,
much
no.
as I can, but I'm attracted to straight men, which means bottom of the barrel. But since I'm not necessarily what a lot of straight men picture as their ideal partner, because a lot of hetero men still hold the ideal, probably like for some time of a good reason. When it comes to finding a partner, like reproducing is like in a lot of their minds. I'm glad people reproduce. It's nice to have the human race keep going so that more queer and trans people can be reproduced.
Is it?
I mean, you
Is
know,
it
for the
nice to have
sake
the human
of
race
the
going?
ones that are hopefully will fix if not for any other reason than to bring new queer and trans revolutionaries into the world to help save the planet.
Sometimes I think Thanos was low key onto something. I was like, let's hear him out. Let's hear Thanos out, y'all.
So yeah, so I do think that again, polyamory probably seems like a really good option for me because these guys aren't necessarily the people that I've dated in my history. You know, jealousy has come into play and resentment has come into play because I've been told, oh, I can come to see you for sex, but I can't really see you for any other purposes because I can't have kids with you. So I have to end this now because you can't give me kids, but she can. So that kind of feels abusive. And then resentment and jealousy come in. So yes, in that regard, I have experienced jealousy in relationships. To answer your question.
Well, I also want to. I will say out there, anyone out there, you know, if you're thinking about engaging in polyamory as a last ditch effort, it might be hard to find happiness in that, and it has to be when you're dating someone who's dating someone, you really have to be considering that person's happiness on a level in a way that you never considering someone else's happiness, which is like that sometimes maybe you're not the person to make them the happiest all the time or in general, or you know what I mean, maybe someone else makes them happier in a different moment and in a different way at a different time, and people who have you in life are choosing to have you in their life for a reason. Then you have to suss out if that reason is good for you or if that reason is bad for you, you know?
So, with that being said, it is time for our first guest. Deshawn Jenkins is a multidisciplinary performance artist living in New York City. And after the release of their fourth independent solo album under the former moniker DAJ, and some time spent in Tokyo, Japan, of course, Deshawn returned to New York in 2018 and has been writing and creating opportunities for their own production company, Deshawn Dreams Entertainment, consisting of original theatrical works, visual art, podcasts, music, and live performance productions ever since. Deshawn shares how they met and fell in love with their current partners and how the triad has transformed their lives. Deshawn also shares an original song with us. Here's Deshawn.
My name is Deshawn Jenkins. I am a multidisciplinary artist. I have been living in New York for 11 years now, but I just recently moved upstate in 2022. So I live up here with my two partners, our two dogs, a cat, and two guinea pigs. So whole little family we have up here. But I love it. It's great. My partners and I decided to move upstate in the spring of 2022. At that point, we had already been living together for about like 4 months. And that was, we were 2 years into our relationship at that point. And then we just decided that it was time to move. Actually, we were inspired because we took a day trip to Sleepy Hollow in 2021 and fell in love with like just the whole atmosphere and the idea of having the city accessible, but being away from it. And so when we were looking for places to move, instead of picking like Astoria, which is where I wanted us to go, at first, we decided to go ahead and look upstate. My partners and I found a 3-bedroom, 3-bathroom house for $2,400, which is very unheard of. So we were like, okay, yes, absolutely. And it works for us. It allows us to have the space. And, you know, I have a room that is just mine, my little creative nook. They have an office, and then we have our bedroom, and just upstairs, downstairs, attic. It's a whole little nest here. When I first realized I was polyamorous, or even considering polyamory as an option, I had just come out of a couple of failed relationships, and it wasn't necessarily in this time. It wasn't that anybody else was involved. There was like no infidelity or anything. It's just the idea of feeling like there's this one person and there's this whole world that I just want to explore. Even like having like deeply loving relationships with friends, and that was affecting my relationships because my partner at the time would get jealous. Things just weren't clicking. And I decided like, maybe I should try something else. And I met this guy, and he introduced me to this idea of like polyamory. And I was like, wait a minute, this is okay. Like everybody's cool with this. Hold on. And so I just kind of explored the idea, but I never found anything concrete. And so I took a year of celibacy in 2017. So like all of 2017 into 2018, I was celibate. And coming out of that, I was like, okay, like I'm ready to go. And I found this app called Field, which was a polyamorous app. And I thought to myself, okay, let me give this a try. Like, maybe it'll just be fun, meet some people. And that's how I ended up meeting my two partners, actually. I wasn't looking into like books or any sort of like other information about polyamory. It kind of started, to be very honest, with more so just exploring, being the third in a couple of dynamics sexually. I got to just explore the ideal of like multi-person love physically, not necessarily in a relationship yet. And that was like that doorway that opened, which in most queer dynamics, that's what happens. The sex comes first and the relationship comes later. One of the biggest things for me that I still hold very, very important is understanding like the dynamic when you're with different people, especially if you're walking into a relationship that's already established. And I know my place. And I'm not here to cause a threat to that dynamic. I think that's the worst thing you can do. And it's best to understand that you are dealing with two different people, and then you are dealing with yourself. So having a relationship with this person, having a relationship with that person, the three of you having a relationship together, and then what does that look like and feel like for you? And I went into this dynamic, even though it did start off sexually, that was still just the approach. And honestly, that's the approach that I bring to even in those other sexual environments. I just knew like, okay, I'm coming in as the third. So I'm not here to make an issue. I'm not here to make everybody uncomfortable. I'm actually here to make everybody comfortable and have even more fun. So I'm very self-aware of that. Thank you, trauma. I'm very self-aware of that. But in this dynamic, it does work because I'm very cautious and just paying attention and just making sure everybody's cool. We do check-ins all the time. The three of us, like all the time. In the beginning of our relationship, we used to it was my choice to have like a sit down check-in where I would be like, family time, family talk. Okay. How's everybody feeling? Is everybody doing okay? Are we good? Everything is good. I'm a big communicator. My partners are not per se. And so it's like we were living on extremes. Here I am on this side of the communication, because to me, in general, with anyone in my life, transparent and honest, open communications are number like one. Actually, they're not even 1 and 2. They're tied at first place about how I just walk into any dynamic. Whereas with them, they're very settled and grounded. They were already together for 12 years when I met them. So there was already a trust there that was just set in place. And so, I was the one pushing for the conversations. We don't really have them so much anymore now. I mean, like 4 years in, it's just more so like if we have an argument, we talk it out. Like I don't like for us to like go days without, talking things out if we have an argument. So we end up dealing with it right then and there. Like, okay, why are we here? What's going on? We need to talk this out. We need to like clear this air. I am always the mediator, but I wear that with a badge of honor, honestly, because it helps. And it's nice to kind of see, they bring something out of me just as much as I bring something out of them. They ground me, and then I like pull them up out of the ground at the same time. So it's a nice little like wavelength of things. I signed up for Field and I literally finished my profile. I pressed, submit and refresh my page. And in the refresh, I had a message already. And it was Mark, who is one of my partners. And I opened the message and he's like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, geez, I literally just got this through. So I went ahead and replied, and he sent me his partner's profile. He sent me Juan's profile as well. And we just kind of chat, everything was okay, you can come over. So I actually got lost because they lived up in Flushing and I lived in Bushwick. So trying to get there was a journey and a half times 3. And I got off a stop early and ended up having to catch an Uber, which was really funny. But we got there and I got to the house and we sat down, we had a couple drinks and we talked. And, it's always that awkward space where you're like, okay, I'm here for us to get down, but like, who's going to make the first move, And I don't even honestly remember who started it, but everything started and we had our fun. And then afterwards we came back out in the living room and we just talked for like the rest of the night, like just chilled. And like, I was playing with their dog, Harley, which is now our dog. And we were talking and like talking about expectations. And they were very clear at that time that they just wanted a friend with benefits. And I was open to that. I was very much like, cool. Like, that's fine with me. Even though in my mind, I'm like, could this be a relationship? Like, this dynamic is very like easy and calm. Oh, another thing too that I remember is when I was filling out my profile, one thing I was very, very cautious about was how I present myself. I'm non-binary. And it was important for me to be able to be in a space that I felt safe and very like comfortable with. And so I, and especially as a Black person, I know that there's a certain expectation that people have when they see a Black queer person with a beard and a bald head. There's the immediate idea is, there's this masculine edge that they are automatically going to get. I've even had somebody not date me because I was not masculine enough and I didn't give Trey Songz, literally verbatim, what was said to me. And so in the messages that Mark and I were talking, I mentioned that like, hey, I don't know what your expectation is, but I'm not the most masculine person in the world, like my nails are painted and like, I just want to let you know that this is how I flow. And he was like, oh, it's fine. It's fine. And I'm like, okay, I'm just letting you know. When I got to the door and Mark opened the door and introduced himself, Juan comes like zooming around the corner and he just goes, and his nails are painted blue. So immediately I was like, oh, I'm safe. I'm very, very safe. And that was another moment for me where I was like, this could be something, but wanting to respect their dynamic and they're wanting a friend with benefits rather than a relationship. I was just like, cool, plus I was just coming out of being celibate. Like I was hot in the head. So I was, would have jumped at anything. And that's just how things really started, from the very beginning. So we started to spend a lot of time together after we met. And, I remember our very first like date that was just not at the house. They actually went to a vegan restaurant in Chelsea. And we just had a really nice time. And it was really during the pandemic when things really started to shift. So the world shuts down, they're in Flushing, I'm in Bushwick, I'm in a room by myself. And to be very honest, that was when I actually started to really pay attention to a lot of my relationship dynamics, my family dynamics, my friendship dynamics, because it was very clear to me that the world is shut down for everyone. And the safest place for me to be is alone in a room in Bushwick. And that actually made me very sad because I was like, wow, I love my family, but I would not be going home to be with them. That would not be a good place for me. And so during that time, we were talking and texting, and then I had an idea. I said, hey, how about if you have a car, you can come pick me up. I'll come straight from the house to the car, and then we'll go from the car to the house and we'll be there for the week. And it was just supposed to be, and it was just for a week. And they agreed. So we made the arrangements and everybody was masked and everything, masked in the car, the whole nine. And that week that we spent together was when I think for all three of us, there was this click, because we just were there. It was not sexual. There was no any discomfort or awkwardness. I mean, it was just such a flow. Like, we watched movies, we played games, and we just like fell asleep here, fell asleep there. It was just so easy. And that is when things really started to like, And so like once a month, we started to spend that time together more and more over that week time. And then it became 2 weeks. And then, things started to open up. And for my birthday, they took me to the Dragon Drive. We actually went to the very first Dragon Drive that they had in New York. And that was like really cool. And just our time just got longer and longer. And then I got a dog. And when I got a dog, that really brought everything together, because it was important for me, for my dog to meet their dog, to meet them. And before I knew it, I was at their house and just hadn't left. And I'm like, why am I paying rent? Like, this doesn't make any sense here. And they agreed. And that's when we decided to move in together. So it really was a very slow climb. But we landed. When it comes to like being in a multi-person relationship, it's important for me to acknowledge both people. I don't have a preference over one partner over the other, because my relationship with both of them is different. All three of us are three completely different people. I'm very much an adventurer, outgoing, and I'm an artist. Mark is a grounded, like, homebody. Like, he, worked for the city for a while, and just, very family oriented person. And Juan is extremely introverted, like, techie, computer, building things, like, just very like in his little bubble of space. But the three of us together create something special. And to me, that's what I was more interested in. I didn't really care about, the fact that Juan and I communicate better than Mark and I did. It's just that Mark and I have a different way of communicating. And once we figured that out, it got even easier. Like, Mark and I like to banter, we like to fight, but it's a fun thing. Like, in fact, I tell him all the time, like, you're actually making me sharper and a little bit more witty, because I'm sensitive. So I don't do the reads very well, but Mark likes to come with it. So he like gives me that, like, oh, okay, wait a minute, I get to fight back. Where Juan and I can sit and talk about the world and the moon and the stars for hours. And both of those things deserve their space. And so it, again, me and my awareness of both of my partners being like, okay, especially because we are a throuple that is closed. Well, let me not say that. we're a triad, but it's just the three of us, like, together. And so it's just really important for me to recognize that, like, there's multi relationships happening and different dynamics. So, and I even told Mark that when we had the talk that things were starting to shift. I remember we sat down and it was like, okay, we're really moving in this direction. And Mark said to me, like, the biggest thing that I'm worried about is protecting my marriage. It was like, I just want to make sure I'm protecting my marriage. And I looked at him, I actually grabbed his hand. I said, listen to me. I'm not interested in this if it's not the three of us. So your marriage is not a threat. Think of it as I'm an addition, because if it's not the three of us, then there's no point in me being here, because I'm not interested in that. And that, he immediately like calmed down, and it just, it changed everything. And we've just continued to grow. Now here we are in this house. We're a family. We got one bank account, one card, like everything is just merged, which is something I've never had in my life. So it's been really beautiful. Being with Mark and Juan has really made me examine myself. It made me examine my needs, my boundaries. And it actually taught me what I was searching for, which is why things weren't working for so long, because I was searching for something so much rather than just being. And they still help me out a lot with that, especially with the family dynamic of it all. When we moved in together, I had a bit of a struggle adjusting to the safety of like our home and our family dynamic. Unfortunately, life is what it is. And I'm used to family dynamics either being crumbling from drama or, things being taken away and then it's all over. And so I was always ready for that. So any moment something would happen, I would be like, what's happening? What's happening? And, you know, they both would be like, you're safe. You're good. We're good. Why are you so worried? What's wrong? And I really had to sit with myself and like tap in. And as self-aware as I am, I really just had to really go within and be like, okay, why am I triggered? What's going on? And that's when I started to do the inner work, and I started to uproot like, oh my gosh, I don't know what it feels like to be safe in a family. I don't know what that feels like. And so, wow, has this also shown up in other friendships? Is this the reason why all my other relationships didn't last? Because I was always like, oh, so let me just get out of this before something happens. It healed my inner child. Honestly, it gave me a safe space to be. You know, my partners are very extremely supportive and always pushing me forward. They want the best for me just as much as I want the best for me, and it's vice versa. And so it's really been very healing, a very, very healing journey. Just feeling safe in a dynamic like this. And again, I say family because we are a family. I've met Mark's dad and his brother, and they come over. We're like it's a whole thing now. Like, I'm like, these are my nieces. This is Papa Lou. Like, this is the family. And his brother and his father are amazing. Like, they love me. I love it. It's just been, it's really awesome. So it's been very, very healing for me. If we were to have a child, there would have to be a lot of changes in our family flow, only because, you know, the responsibility of raising a child is so major. And, you know, I'm sure that would be something we could figure out. But I think right now, like, Juana's in school full time. I'm in my artistry full time, and I'm a yoga teacher as well. And so, you know, Mark is like, you know, holding down the fort. Like, I've got this, the home's good. We're good. Everything is good. So if we were to have kids, it would be a major shift. Our animals are our children, very much so. Like I said, we have 2 dogs, Bamboo and Harley. Bamboo is a Dachshund, Harley is a boxer lab mix, and they are a lot together. Especially the Dachshund. Bamboo is a alpha dog to the 9, and he wants all the attention. He sucks up all the attention in every room. Like, I laugh because I tell Mark and Juan all the time, I'm like, Bamboo barked his way into this house. This is all Bamboo's doing. And those are our kids. That's enough for us. I do want children, like, at some point in life, but, you know, I have nieces and nephews, and if we never have a little baby of our own, that's fine. And I say that now until I get one, and then be like, I can't give you back. So we not sure what to do with that. A typical date for us is honestly laying on the couch, watching movie, and ordering in like either Chinese food, or Mark has cooked, because Mark loves to cook, and he'll cook, and that's our date night. We are the most boring. Like, I joke all the time. I'm like, we could never have a reality TV show because there would be nothing to watch. Like, we will lay around watching Bob's Burgers all night. That's our favorite show outside of Drag Race. And also, it's like Bob's Burgers. Mark and Juan are obsessed with true crime. I can't do it. I don't have the sensitivity for it, but they will marathon. In fact, I will come downstairs, I see what's on, and I'm like, y'all have that. I'm going to go back upstairs into my art room. Like, this is time for you two. So that's our date night. Though recently we did go to see Bianca Del Rio in Poughkeepsie, and it was a big deal for us because we don't like do anything. So I'm like, this is date night, guys. Like, we're actually getting out of the house. This is amazing. So that's us. We literally are the most boring throuple you probably meet. One thing about queer relationships that I think we all should understand, is that we are queer. Like, bottom line. So everything about how we approach everything is just not going to be heteronormative. And nothing, no shade or anything to anyone who does monogamy works for them. it's just, we don't have to subscribe to that. Nobody really does. But I find in queer dynamics that happens a lot more, where you have people exploring, because queer people are explorers. We're free thinkers. We see the world so much bigger than the boxes that we were told that we were in and the world is in to begin with. And I think that knowing yourself, spending time to know yourself, helps aid in figuring all that out for you. Within the structure of our relationship right now, we are, close per se, and we have been for a while. We recently had a little adventure, which was fun. It was fun, but also like it was important for us to establish a foundation between the three of us before anything like that could even be possible. So yeah, I mean, I feel like queer people trying to force ourselves into a box that's not meant for us doesn't make sense. We create our own boxes. We figure it out, whether it's, 3 people, 4 people, 5, do you, you know, it works for you. And as long as everybody's on the up and up and knows what's what, then, by all means, respect yourself, respect your bodies, respect your partners' bodies and limits and boundaries, and just love each other. That to me is the space to allow ourselves to live in our relationship dynamics. This is one of my favorite songs on my new EP called Now Wait Just a Damn Minute. It's out everywhere streaming, and also the visual is up live on YouTube. And it's called The First Love Letter. And this song to me was really a letter I was writing to myself and to my passions, because I forgot what that was for a while, and kind of taking some time to like sit with myself and like fall back in love with all of that. I wrote this song called The First Love Letter, and it literally is just a love letter to my inner child, my passions, my music, and everything. So yeah, I sing a little bit of that for you. Oh, it's true, you are my first love letter. Hello, hi, it's me. Couldn't find the rhythm, didn't believe in me. So silent, your blues, I weep. But now that I have you, I keep. Never did I think you'd sing with me. Share in my vision, see what I see. Sailing through the ethers, heartbeat in sync. Anchor my divinity, define my purity. In you I seek all things. Love, first and foremost, you bring me in. Take me to places where there's no end. Here we can dance with pure ambition. Speaking new languages, new life begins. Oh, it's true, you are my first love letter. And that's a little bit of First Love Letter.
What a blessing to have that, to have them share their art with us. Sharing your art is really vulnerable. So thank you so much, Deshawn, for doing that. And it's so interesting too, that the idea of joining a couple that is already established, I've never been in a situation like that before, but I don't know. Does it give, like, would I wonder in that situation, obviously it depends on the people, would I feel welcomed? Would I feel nervous? Would I feel anxious? I think that the people I would be, the other part of the triad would have a lot to do with.
Naturally, that's why you would go there to begin with. But I have seen couples, like gay couples, open up, and the pattern that I've seen the most is that whoever's new is the one who stays. And I've seen that the most, unfortunately. And so they weren't, I don't know if they consider themselves polyamorous or like, a throuple is what they would, call it, sort of like in informal terms. Yeah. But it's the new one, the new one who was also, it would be like a couple that was like a similar age and kind of same kind of zone. And then the new person who's like younger. And then the younger wife sticks around, and then the older wife is gone.
I wonder what that has. I wonder if that has anything to do with just like
Yeah.
relationships running their course and being like, well, this one ran its course in 5 years, and then when this one runs the course, this one just has a different start
Well, if
date,
it
so the
didn't,
end date's going to
the
probably be a
course
little
is
bit
going to
later
get
down the
run when
line
that
too.
new girl
I
gets
wonder if
there. She gonna run that course out.
I I will say that when I've never been in a triad, but I was dating someone, and then I met someone else, and then
The first
I'm
one.
still dating the guy that I was
So do
dating.
you
I
use
still
the term? I mean,
my
I
first
guess
boyfriend
it's
is
for
still like,
people who are like more
yeah.
serially polyamorous. The term my primary partner.
I don't want to use the term primary
Yeah.
partner because it really seems to kind of create a hierarchy, which can certainly encourage feelings of jealousy and resentment. And just like, and honestly, I've tried to stop using the term best
Yeah.
friend
I think
too,
about it
because
every
it kind
single
of
time, and
creates a
I
hierarchy
feel
within
cringy
relationships.
every time I say it. So I don't even say you are mine. Now I say you're one of my.
Like this is
That's
my
the best. That yeah.
Yeah, so I do say one of my best friends, and I think that I've like on the internet I've been like
Mm-hmm.
colloquially attached to Monet as my best friend, because Monet and I have to talk all the time, but also you and I talk all the time, and me and Mateo talk all the time, and people in my family, and Jacob is also. I mean, Jacob and I talk all the time. I know we're dating, but we're still friends. He is one of my best friends. You know what I mean? And DJ Two Face and tons of people who I spend time talking to and like love and appreciate and care for. And I think
The
that
best one
my
of them
best
all.
friend is just such a I don't know. Yeah, it's very giving at the end of the Wizard of Oz. Dorothy's like,
I
I'll
think
miss
it's
you, and I'll miss you
juvenile.
the most of all, Scarecrow. I'd be the lion. The lion's like,
Yeah.
what's
I was
the
like,
fuck that
bitch,
supposed to mean? The fuck is that supposed to be?
snatch
Like,
your
you'll miss
little wig
Scarecrow
right
more than
off.
me. Bitch, I scared away. I was the lion scaring people away. And you gonna miss the Scarecrow more than me. That's rich, Dorothy. That's rich. You
Yeah.
wild for that one. You wild for that one, Dorothy. I'm also, I'm interested too. There aren't a lot of depictions of polyamory in media. Like, what was there like? Was it My Big Family? What's the one with the guy with like all the wives in the houses
Oh,
on the
something like that.
compound? Me and
Yeah.
My Six
I've not
Wives.
seen it, but
What's the name of that? And then there's like that. Then there's that script. I mean, I could have done a little monicum of research. And I mean, then there's that scripted TV show about about
oh.
Big Love. Big Love is the scripted show. Big Love is the scripted show about polygamy and polyamory. And I just for the life of me cannot remember the name of the reality TV show or that guy. I remember watching a video. He would like go from a house. He had like 6 houses all on one property, and he had like 20 something kids, and he would just go between each house with all of his children and all of his wives. And also providing for one family is wild. Providing for 6, what is happening in your bank account? Are you a Rothschild?
I
What is
mean, they
happening?
find a way to make it work.
What in the Nick Cannon is going what in the Nick Cannon is going on that you have this many children with this
There
many
are
women? You know
some
what I mean?
films, some historic films and things, some films in general that have focused on highlighted polyamory and sort of revolutionizing Black sexuality on screen. She's Gotta Have It. Definitely is one of those films. And there's a movie that I saw. I'm actually trying to look for it right now. And I'm gonna
I mean, I haven't seen She's Gotta Have It in so long. I really can't remember what it's about. Um, I guess it's been a minute
I
since I
mean, it's been
watched She's
since the
Gotta Have It. You know
80s.
what I mean? I need to rewatch it. Yeah, I need
Um,
to rewatch that then.
I can give you the synopsis, though. Here's the synopsis.
The story of Nola Darling's simultaneous sexual relationships with 3 different men
Mm-hmm.
is told by her and her partners and other friends. I wonder if this is consensual. Do these? I can't remember. Do the 3 guys know? Are they
They do. I
consenting?
mean, that's part
Do
of
they have problems with it?
um the Shakespeare of it all. Like it starts to overlap, and there's comedy. It's like
Yeah,
comedic, and like that's part of the movie, right?
comedy of errors.
And then there's the TV show She's Gotta Have It, I think, or like a remake or something like that. It came a little later on. But there's a film that I watched recently that had Black women, one doctor and I don't know, it was a TV show or a movie. Um, I gotta figure it out. It was really, really, really good, and it had the women all sort of. It was a communal sort of experience with the women raising each other's children, and it was one man and several wives. Anyway, it really it brings back in my mind I talked about this before, the movie Origin by Ava DuVernay. Just, I think, a really well done movie about a brilliant book called Caste: The Origin of Our Discontents. Such a great book. I've just started reading it, and the film is great. But it really does talk. It addresses the function of creating the need for the one man, one woman relationship. When it comes to relationships, one of the pillars of the caste system is let me just try to look up the 4 pillars. 4 pillars. Oops. The 4 pillars of the caste system. Pillar number 3 is endogamy, control of marriage and mating. And endogamy is basically the laws, the policies, the social standards and norms that you establish that make it difficult for people to see each other as human. And basically they're saying in like during Jim Crow, and before, white people, it was illegal for whites and blacks to marry. It was illegal for whites and blacks to mate. It was illegal to, for any of these situations, because when you mate with someone of a different race or a different identity or a different whatever, who's of a different caste or class, then you start to care about them and what happens to them. And what we need is for all the whites to not care about the blacks. And the best way to do that is to limit how they relate to each other, especially romantically. And so those are when the endogamy laws came in order to reinforce the caste system that was perpetrated through racism and chattel slavery and Jim Crow, and then all the other ways, systemic racism in our country. Limiting how people can connect was really a crucial part of keeping that hierarchy intact. And so that's one way of controlling people, obviously. And so that's another people subscribe to it. It was what was the law of the land. And before you know it, everybody was like, oh yeah, we got to marry within our race. And without even thinking about it, you know what I mean?
That's all.
And so I think that's just another layer to the approach of the monogamy. Yeah. Anyway, I know I went off on a bit of a diatribe.
It's fine. I was reminded of a other very odd but kind of comical depiction of polyamory, which was on the show BoJack Horseman. Spoiler alert if you've not watched BoJack Horseman, but BoJack is a dark comedy about a horse who is a Hollywood star from a sitcom in the 80s or 90s, and then he kind of got big again. But anyway, spoiler alert, he finds his daughter. Her name is Hollyhock. Oh. But then he finds out that Hollyhock is actually his sister. But Hollyhock is the daughter of a polycule. And she has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 fathers, whose names are Deshawn Manham, Steve Manham, Jose Guerrero, Coupe Robinson III, Otto Zilberschlag, Ardo Iceman Fronzelli, Gregory Sung, and Quackers McQuack. And they're this group of of gay guys. So one of them's a duck, there's a frog, and there's a bear, and the rest are all humans. And they are raising Hollyhock. And it's an interesting depiction because whenever they talk about Hollyhock, she has these like really understanding 9 fathers who are always just there for her, and they're really sweet and they're kind and they listen, and she gets the things that she needs in life. And at first you feel sad because Holly Hawk didn't have her father, BoJack Horseman, who you think is BoJack, who turned out to be her his she turned out to be his sister, not his daughter. But I don't know, it's just really interesting, this comical, kind of like farcical depiction of polyamory.
Okay.
So if I can tell you what episode, I believe it is, I can't, I'm not sure what season, but go check out, seasons, it starts in season 4. You can see Hollyhock popping up in season 4. So, get into it. It's really interesting.
It sounds
it's
interesting,
nothing if not
for
interesting.
Sure. 9 gay dads. Good grief.
I had one straight dad. That really kind of wrecked me. So I can't imagine what 9 gay dads would be like. So let's go on to our next guest. So Marisa began together with her husband for 20 years, and she identifies as pansexual. And her husband is currently exploring his sexuality. Marisa and her husband have been in some form of ethical non-monogamy since the beginning of their relationship. And Marisa shares with us the complexities of raising children within a non-monogamous relationship structure. And take it away.
I am not only fascinated by Marisa's story, but also by her husband. And, now that the fact that no,
well, they're open, so
not
if
in
you're
that
really
way, but the fact
fascinated,
that she said that he is now exploring his sexuality as a result, and I think that's pretty cool. Like it opens up literally your mind, about like the freedom, that people can experience with a freer type of sexual expression.
Hi, my name is Marisa. I'm from New York, Queens originally, and the running joke is that my mother worked at Rikers Island. So a lot of people expected me to kind of carry in her footsteps, yet here I am, the creative one. I'm a photographer. I've owned my business for about 15 years now. I'm also a fashion historian, which started out as a hobby to make clothes because they were too expensive. And now it started to become somewhat of a full-time job now. I'm a mom of 2. I am a wife. We are polyamorous. And I'm just kind of rocking with life right now. When I was about 20, I had a stroke and I was placed on short-term disability. And so while I was on disability, I was like really bored, looking for something to do. And my husband, his old roommate, they had a photography company. And they said, if you like to come along, just do some photo shoots with us, that'll be fine. And I did. And it sort of grew from there. It started with like following them to photograph weddings, but I started really finding my own kind of group with doing newborn and maternity photography. But I also do weddings. I also it's pretty much the circle of life. So, engagement session, wedding, maternity, kids, and it keeps going on and on. A fashion historian is someone who not only studies fashion throughout history or specific time periods. For example, I like to research and wear and make things from the 1950s all the way back to like ancient Rome. And I'm in a couple of different organizations, and each organization does sort of a different kind of timeline. But besides making the clothes, we study how they were made, who they were made for, the society of that time period. And I have a special focus on what Black people wore and how Black people and people of color lived within society of those different time periods. It is very healing. And I didn't realize how learning how to sew and researching things like that would be healing. Like I said, it started off as a hobby, and my grandmother absolutely loved it. And unfortunately, we lost her due to Alzheimer's. But whenever me and my husband would dress up in like the 1950s through the 1920s, like something would just click in her memory. And she would call me Big Mama, which was her grandmother. And it went from just, I need to learn how to make clothes to studying. And since people have such this weird thing that Black people only existed inside the scope of slavery, no matter where we are, no matter what time it is, we only existed in that narrow scope. So doing this and educating other people while I'm doing it as a hobby is very, very fulfilling. So the way that I realized I was polyamorous, I guess I would say it happened even before I met my husband, but at the time I honestly had no idea what it was or the term or anything like that. All I knew was that I identified with being attracted to pretty much anybody. And as far as relationships went, I knew that I wanted to be with different people because like one person will bring certain aspects that I feel that like we could give each other. But I felt like, well, if I could have like more than one best friend, why can I not have more than one romantic partner? And we're all open with it and we're just, filling each other's cups. And then, so when I met my husband, it was at our first day at work. Well, it was my first day. He was already working there. And he comes up, he starts a conversation with me and the other girl. We ended up in the same department in computers because we're both super nerds. And even though like we initially were not dating, he loves to ask questions. He is like a walking Google. He gets information and gives information. So as we're always talking and always communicating, it sort of got on the table of like, what kind of relationships would I want? And I was explaining it to him. And he was like, oh, so you like polyamory? And I'm like, I didn't know that's what it was called. Because at the time, for me, it wasn't more about, it was somewhat about the relationships, but I was young and I was like, look, I'm about to do me. I'm living my best Sex in the City life. And like, I'm doing whatever I want. But as time grew, and we started dating, it became, hey, even though we're dating each other and we want to be exclusive, this is something that we feel that we should always have open communication about in case we're attracted to somebody else and in case that sort of starts developing into another relationship. And that was almost 20 years ago. He definitely was polyamorous long before me. He was in the military, and one of the running things is when people are out to sea, other people are in the bed. So he had already experienced it. He had long-term relationships before me. And when he brought it up, it was like, okay, this is something cool. And even though we were together, we weren't initially with other people right from the start. Like, it takes time to build a relationship and whatnot. Yeah, so from there, I would say easily probably within a year or so of dating is when we were like, okay, this is definitely something that we want in our relationship. We just need to make sure we have the right people. There's always jealousy in polyamory relationships, whether ethical, non-monogamous relationships, polyamory, anything that falls under that umbrella. Ethical non-monogamy, I guess the best way to say it is the ability to have open relationships and everybody that is involved in that relationship or relationships are completely honest. Everybody talks about it. Everybody's aware. Different relationships have different rules, I guess, or boundaries. But basically, everybody knows what's going on. Nobody's cheating. But that's not to say that cheating cannot happen. People will always still cheat if they want to cheat, basically. But ethical non-monogamy is about being open and having multiple relationships and being honest about it, being ethical about it. For example, for me and my husband, we always have the general rule of if we are attracted to somebody, we'll still bring it up, like, hey, like, I think so-and-so is cute. But when it comes to like, hey, I'm really feeling so-and-so, I think I may want to try to, start seeing how this goes. And we talk about it right from the gate. Now, sometimes things may get a little hot and heavy depending on the situation, and we may not get a chance to talk to each other ahead of time, depending on where we're at. So as soon as like the next time we're available to talk, whether it be right after the party time or whatever, we let each other know. And that's like our boundary. We're always trying to let each other know, always talking about it, always being honest. But in that example, cheating would be just outright keeping it a secret, not telling each other, sneaking behind each other's back, hiding the phones, things like that. When it comes to jealousy and polyamory, it affects people differently. One of the things I had to learn was that I wasn't necessarily jealous of thinking that the person is better than me, or like, oh, what if he finds somebody to replace me? I was jealous of the time spent away. And it's kind of weird because people are like, well, wouldn't you be jealous that he's going to replace you? And I'm like, not necessarily, because I'm me. Like, he's not going to find another me. The same way I'm not going to find another him, or I'm not going to find, somebody X, Y, or Z. When it comes to the jealousy part, a lot of it is having a good network, especially friends who are also polyamorous or who have been in polyamorous relationships. Being able to talk to people is definitely a huge one to work through your jealousy. Journaling. I'm a big advocate of journaling, writing that down, even if you have to write it down and burn it later, just get it out. And then, of course, talking to each other and explaining hey, I'm feeling that you may not be spending as much time with me because of this person. So can we address that? Maybe, an extra hour or two for date night or something like that. It's a lot of talking. It's like a Dr. Phil episode. We're talking all the time. One of the best benefits from being polyamorous is the ability to talk. I think a lot of us, especially when we're taught in different social circles or different even cultural, religious backgrounds, that there are things that we are not supposed to talk about. We are supposed to keep it inside. Even within a relationship, you don't talk to your husband or your wife or whomever about X, Y, or Z. And people just go through life just afraid to communicate. And I'm quick to I am honest. I will let you know if this is not in my vibe, we got to go, put that on the back burner. But definitely one of the benefits is the ability to communicate, the ability to listen also. Because I know for a fact I was hard-headed. When people would talk to me, my first defense was to be defensive. And I wasn't listening to what they were saying. I was listening just to react. So being able to talk, being able to listen, and also just having people that nourish you, in different aspects of your relationship. Not everybody is going to be 100%, we all like the same things. We all do the same things together. It's having that extra layer or social circle of people that support you, that love you. We could all share in that experience. That's definitely a great thing. A lot of people who only know polyamorous from an outside view, they think that we may just have 100% perfect relationships with everybody. We don't go through heartbreak and whatnot. And there have been multiple situations where I fully gave my heart, and even knowing that it's it's kind of the same timeline if you're in a monogamous relationship. You become friends, you talk, you date and whatnot. You break up, you're going to be heartbroken, depending on if, you actually were really into that person. So there's been a couple of times where both for myself and my husband, or even with our partners, we've either had to step away from each other in a romantic aspect, or just slow it down and focus on who we were with initially. This is me and my husband, we kind of explained it through the years. It's kind of like going to a food truck festival. If you're a foodie, you're like, oh, this is bet. There's so many different food trucks. I'm about to have the time of my life. I got a credit card. They take Square. We're going to have a good time. Just because we're together and we've made the commitment that this is, we're going to share a life. We're going to have children. We're going to build a house. We're going to trust each other with important decisions. That's our relationship. Being able to love other people is pretty much, I guess, fluid. I would say is just the next step. And that doesn't mean that every person we date, we fall in love, or that we're dating constantly with other people. It just means that when we have found another person or another couple, because we were in a quad, 4 of us together for 10 years. And if we just match and vibe, it's amazing. My husband and myself were in a 10-year relationship with my best friend and her husband. And they had met, my best friend and her husband had met already. They had just started dating. We all met each other. Well, we met each other at a party with them. And from there, me and her became best friends. And it's just 10 years of being in a marriage with your best friend, essentially. Now, we did not live with each other. they always lived like 2 miles away. We're always in the same neighborhood. Like, and if one of us needed somebody to watch the kids, take us to a doctor's appointment, anything, it was covered. It was guaranteed. Holidays were spent with each other's families and whatnot. They were with me when me and my husband had our second pregnancy. So they got to experience the whole journey with us. Like, it's beautiful. We're all still friends. We very much still friends. We also live within each other. They have separated, but they're still friends. And even though we're all still polyamorous, we're not in just a full relationship anymore. We're kind of in a transition period of, we're still the best of friends. Our kids are still always together. We're always at each other's house. We don't have to knock, just kick down the door. Like, but it's just, it took its course. It's been 10 years and we're doing different things and going in different directions, all of us, like in career paths and whatnot. Children and polyamory, for a lot of people, it is a touchy subject because I guess it's the stigma of people saying, oh, if you're polyamorous, you just want to have an excuse to cheat. And if you want to do that, then you're having unprotected sex. Nobody's caring about who's being with who. And then what about the children? Not every couple, not every polyamorous relationship wants to have children within that relationship. So for me and my husband, we have never considered wanting to have children with other people. Like, our kids are our children. And even in the dating phase, like, our kids are young. They're still relative. They're 9 and 12. They don't have a concept of dating. Well, the 12-year-old, she's 12 now. So she's getting a concept of what dating is. But when any relationship that we had, the only ones that they mainly knew were the 10-year relationship and another friend of ours who I was with for about 5 years. And that's introduced as like, oh, this is like, my friend, so-and-so. They don't have an idea of the dating or the relationship structure. Now, that's not to say that other couples don't have that. I do have friends that are within like a full poly household and they have their kids with their partner and then they have a kid together with their other partner. And they're all living in the same house. It definitely does have to be talked within like your relationship structure and who you're gonna be with. But for the most part, it's just the same thing as like, even if you were monogamous, you're not gonna bring the first person you date around your kids. Like, you're not gonna introduce them into your family dynamic until you fully trust them, until you feel that if this person was in your kid's life too, would your kid benefit from it? And that's how like we approach it, but other people, some kids are off the table. Nobody meets each other's kids. Other people are like, hey, like, eventually we want to live together. We want to have children within our poly relationship. So it's different for everybody. We have always wanted to have a long-term relationship, but I'm not gonna lie, I like what I like. And sometimes like, it doesn't have to be a relationship all the time. I did not think I would have this life. I grew up being raised in the church. There was a lot of shame about being who you were, expressing your sexuality, not being heterosexual. There's definitely no way I could have explained to them like, hey, I like being with multiple people in relationships. So there was no way at all that this sort of, even my life now, just in general, from being with my husband and the 20 years and everything that we've been through and grew, I did not expect this life whatsoever.
That's interesting.
It's really beautiful. I will say this. I don't think that the world does a good job of allowing men to, especially straight men or supposed straight men, to explore their sexuality. It does not give you, it is not a safe place. Like, it's interesting because it's not even always a safe place for people who aren't straight men, but like it seems to be easier for a woman to explore her sexuality and more socially acceptable for a woman to go through a quote unquote lesbian bisexual phase in college But if you're a guy and you did that in college while you were just trying to find out about yourself or learn about yourself or ask yourself, what does like, because, you know, gender is performance. And if you like femininity and you see a guy who looks kind of feminine, sometimes in these streets in 2024, men be looking like women, women be looking like men. And you'll find yourself, what am I attracted to? Am I attracted to the person? Am I attracted to the anatomy? Am I attracted to the performance of gender? Am I attracted to just men in general? Is being in a relationship with this masculine woman going to open up my mind that I'm actually kind of interested in men too? Is being in a relationship with this feminine man going to open my mind that I'm actually maybe attracted to women as well, because I am attracted to femininity, and it doesn't have to be on a male vessel, on a male-bodied vessel. I think that there is a lot of opportunities to create a safe space where straight men can talk about maybe not being straight without being complete. Like I wish that with this whole Diddy thing, I wish that the point of the case wasn't that he might be gay. It should be about the fact that he is allegedly assaulting people. But the most sensational thing of it seems to be that he's allegedly gay.
Yeah.
That's what's
I
getting the
mean,
headline.
I agree. I feel the same way about gay men, because I just remember coming through the clubs and working in gay bars in a time where gays were like so staunchly like, women, vagina, you know, and you know that. So I guess that is, we see that misogyny is present in all gay male spaces as well, right? And the misogyny is a lot of times, you know, not only directed at like femme presenting people or women or trans women in the space, but then also other gay men, you know, like I'm only into straight acting men, you know, guys saying that, you know, to other men, and no fats, no femmes. That's obviously misogyny, and internalized sort of homophobia. And so it does go around all around. And I do, but you are right. Like obviously straight men can't access spaces where they feel like they can express and explore different things. I think for gay men, they probably feel the same. I think that the way that they can explore is just different. And same thing with women as well. You know what I mean? Like
lots of gay men who are afraid to admit that they're attracted to trans women, or that they've had relationships with trans women, which is so wild for a gay man to be afraid to acknowledge that he's had a relationship or sex or even sometimes friendship with trans women. You know what I mean? Because they want to distance themselves from. I mean, I've seen it. It's not. I don't typically roll with people like that.
If it's any of my friends, please let me know.
It is not on your friends side now. But you know, there is a prominent, there is a popular trans woman in New York City nightlife who has sex with a lot of gay boys, and you know, sometimes those gay boys don't want you to know, and it's like, who cares? Like, girl, if you had sex with her and she gave you that she gave it to you how you wanted it, then baby, all people
then go get it again.
Go get it again.
She be getting them. We know that she be getting them. Now, maybe if the thing is, I don't want to be just seen as a notch on the bedpost, then I can understand why you might not want to be like, oh, I've been had too. But I don't think that's it. I think it's just like the shame and stigma of like a woman, having sex with a woman, essentially.
Yeah, because you know who she is, and she be getting them gay boys.
Oh, she be. I don't know what it is, honey. It's like some kind of magic, honey. Them gay boys be.
She's just so mesmerizing, and she's so charming, and she kind of almost has this like, I don't know. There's something about it. She's very charming. She's a very, very charming woman.
She will pull you in, honey. Woo! So anyway.
Listen, you all, thank you so much. And of course, a special thanks to our production team, executive producer Tracy Marquez, senior producer Charlene Westbrook, producer Corey Nixon, post-producer Amelia Rataller, and our music is by LaFemme Bear. This is part 2. And remember, we're doing weekly episodes now, so we will see you all very, very soon right here on Town Hall of Black Queer Podcast.